Stop rolling over. Damn it. Alright. Alright. High five, dude. High five. Yeah. That went really far. Alright, guys. Welcome to my video. And... ooh, did that hurt? Welcome to my Stranger Things 3 review. Very dusty. Now, you're probably thinking, why are you reviewing Stranger Things 3 when it came out in July? Well, yes, it's no longer relevant, but I was planning on making this video, and it took me forever to make videos, so yeah, that's why I'm still making this video. Also, I have this Lego set that I'm going to build while I talk about it. Alright, so this video is going to be loosely structured. I wrote a script, but it's not completely a script. Most of it is just notes that I took while watching Stranger Things Stranger 3, also known as Season 3. Okay, so this video will have spoilers for Stranger Things Season 3. Just go watch it. Now, you know what Stranger Things is, okay? Everyone knows what the show is. It's very popular. But if you don't know, it is a drama mystery horror show that takes place in the 80s and is about a bunch of kids and some teenagers and adults in a small town. Just go watch it. This is actually like the biggest Lego set I've ever... oh shit, built. There's a second box inside of the box. Alright, this fucking cardboard needs to... ugh, it's on my head. Can you not... here, you have it, okay? These are the stickers. And you probably can't see it from there. I'll like show close-ups when I'm done, but one thing that stuck out to me is there's a Jaws poster, except for copyright reasons, instead of Jaws it just says shark. This is too much. So Stranger Things 3 is of course a sequel season to a sequel season of Stranger Things. Season 1 has the tightest, most conclusive story, but Season 2 takes it to new places that prevent it from getting old. It introduces new characters who work really well with the characters from the first season, and some characters who were pretty much just side characters in Season 1 become main characters with real development and depth. Some people think that Stranger Things should have ended after one season, but I think they handled the characters and like everything so well that it makes it worth it having the other two seasons. Overall, the best thing in Stranger Things is the writing and the acting, and that's what Season 3 once again nails. The writers took what they had from the first two seasons and turned everything into chess pieces of storytelling with some new additions to spice things up. I mean, to spice up this amazing game of character interactions and mystery. That's what happens when you read from a script, boys and girls. Season 3 adds fewer characters than 2 did, but it really develops all the characters from Season 2 in interesting ways that you may not have expected. Okay, so in Stranger Things, there's basically 3 tiers of characters. The children, the teenagers, and the adults. Let's talk about the children kids first. So something that I think is weird in Stranger Things 3 is the actors who play the kid characters, they all seem significantly older than they did in Season 2, which doesn't really fit with the timeline because Season 3 takes place 6 months after Season 2, roughly. And Season 2 took place a year after Season 1. Yet there's much more of a difference with the kids aging in between Seasons 2 and 3 than there was between Seasons 1 and 2. Like, I get that they can't time everything perfectly with when they film it, but they just should have made Season 3 take place a little bit later. Like, they could even make it take place a year and a half later. That would be believable. Because, you know, they want the summer setting and all that. But yeah, I think that it doesn't fit with the timeline. It's not a huge gripe, but it's noticeable. Okay, so the first episode of Season 3, there are 8 episodes. Each one is about an hour long. It's basically like an 8-hour-long movie. The first time that I watched it, I actually just binged it all in one day, so it was an 8-hour-long movie for me. And I'm trying to find Chief Hopper's legs right now, but for some reason, I found them. I found them. So, yes, the first episode basically sets everything up. It gets us back to where things are with the characters, how things have changed since Season 2, and what's going on with everyone. So, I'm going to be talking about the characters one by one. Look at that. I like Hopper's hat. Like, it's way too big, but that's okay, because it's, you know, Lego and kind of cutesy and all that. Oh, he also has a coffee mug. Okay. There's Chief Hopper. Now, that would be a great segue into talking about Hopper first, but I'm actually gonna talk about Hopper, like, almost last, I think, so that doesn't work. Thanks, Lego, for ruining my video. Okay, so first I'm going to talk about 11, or L, or technically Jane, but no one even says the name Jane in this whole season, I don't think. So 11 is now dating Mike, and Hopper, who is 11's adopted father, he doesn't like how much 11 is hanging out with Mike or how flirty they're dating, because they're quite young children still.
Hey! Hey! 3-inch minimum!
I don't know exactly how old they are actually, but yeah. So Mike was sort of like the protagonist of the first season, I would say, or maybe Joyce a little bit too. But Mike has sort of taken a back seat since then, which is fine with me. I don't think it was the most interesting character in the show, but, you know, I think he works well having sort of the main kid role other than 11 in Season 1. He was sort of like the audience surrogate in Season 1, I guess you could say. So 11 is happy to finally not have to be in hiding from the entire world. You know, she can now visit her friends some. She has a very early curfew, though. Hopper is still overly protective of her, which, you know, makes sense under the circumstances. But yeah, Mike knows that she exists now, and they can actually, you know, hang out and date or whatever. So she's happy about that and happy to have a little more freedom. And basically, this is all ruined when Hopper intervenes in her and Mike's relationship. Not in the proper way, which we'll get to when we talk about Hopper. But basically, Hopper gets pissed at Mike. So Mike stops seeing 11 and lies to her about what's actually going on. And she doesn't like it when friends lie because, you know, friends don't lie and all that. Look at that, we made a bicycle! Does Hopper fit on the bicycle? Kind of. He has like half his ass cheek on there, it's okay. Anyways, 11 ends up making a good female friend with Max. I mean, they knew each other already, but they weren't that close of friends. They were just sort of in the same friend group. So she gets closer with Max and realizes how to have fun without boys or boyfriends or whatever in her life. And she soon learns that closing the gate at the end of Season 2 didn't end the supernatural terror, so she once again feels sort of lost in her purpose, being still, you know, cut off from the world by Hopper, not as much as in Season 2, but, you know. And now her best friend, Mike, she's not hanging out with, but, you know, she's getting along with Max pretty well. Alright, let's talk about Mike. So Mike is happily with Elle. In Season 2, I got a little bit irritated with how much he would talk about Elle when she wasn't there, like, I want Elle! But anyways, yeah, he gets mad at Hopper when Hopper doesn't allow them to date further. Well, I mean, technically he doesn't. He kind of just scares Mike and tells Mike his Nana is sick.
Is everything okay?
I don't think so. It's your grandma.
There's nothing wrong with Nana.
What?
But there's something very wrong with this thing between you and Elle.
Mike really obsesses over his girl problems, you know, with Elle, which he always has. All right, Max. So Max is dating Lucas, and she ends up breaking up with Lucas in a way that, like, I'm not entirely sure if it's completely serious or if she's just doing it to kind of be a bitch. Because Lucas says that she's broken up with him multiple times.
Max has dumped me 5 times.
And, like, they've only been dating for 6 months or something, so... Anyways, I mean, kids that age and relationships, you know, they're figuring stuff out, so... But yeah, I think Max really finds something new and nice for her with her friendship with 11, because her family is, like, really messed up, so she needs to find someone else to, like, interact with and hang out with that is more normal. Like, 11 isn't normal, but Max sort of shows Elle how to be normal. And yeah, they have a really nice little friendship. Alright, Lucas. So Lucas shares Mike's girl problems, you know, with his girlfriend breaking up with him too. And their childhood innocence is kind of being corrupted by heartbreak, I guess you could say. Although, I think that's a little bit too dramatic. So, Mike and Lucas are dating, their girlfriends break up with them, they keep on bitching about it and figuring out how to get them back. But Will is not dating. And I think Will is one of the characters in the season that I sort of connected with the most or related to the most. Will isn't into girls either because he's gay or shy or just a late bloomer. The show doesn't really specify, you know, could be any of those. And he just wants to play Dungeons and Dragons, which is pretty funny when he keeps bringing it up, honestly.
Can we please play D&D now? No!
And I think it's really sad because his childhood was sort of lost with both of the previous 2 seasons and the messed up things that happened to him. I'm glad that he could finally get a break in this season, you know, in comparison to the previous 2, with being lost in the Upside Down and then being possessed by the Mind Flayer. So, while all that tragic shit was happening to him, he sort of missed out on just getting to be a normal kid. So his social development is a little bit behind the rest of his party. And also, some people just don't become interested in dating at that age when their friends do. That was totally, definitely me. Like, when I was in middle school and my group of friends started to get interested in girls, I wasn't really yet, and I was just like, hey guys, let's just play video games, you know? So I totally get him just wanting to play D&D with his friends, and them not listening or caring. And Will is actually, like, he's genuinely trying to distract his friends from their girl issues that they're going through and that they're completely obsessing over. And it's actually quite nice of him to do, to try to, you know, get them to play the game to take their minds off of it. And then they just kind of treat him like shit, and he gets sad, and he destroys Castle Byers, which was one of the saddest moments in this season for me. Obviously, it's not the saddest moment, but I felt things, man, when that happened. That was sad. Alright, and then Dustin has been away at a summer camp where he's been doing science stuff or something. I think it's like a radio camp or whatever. And he seems a lot more distant from his friends than in any of the previous seasons. At the end of season 2, he befriended Steve, but he's sort of naturally grown apart from the rest of the friends in his party, which I really like how that's done. I think that's very realistic as friend groups grow older. Like, not all of them stay in the friend group or, you know, as close to each other, because people just change over time. And Dustin is also into dating, although his girlfriend, at the start of the season, you're not really sure if she's real, because he met her at this camp in Utah, and he says he's real, but he tries to show her to his friends via a radio tower that he built. But he's unable to contact her at the time, which leads them to think that she's fake. Which, if you think about it, doesn't make any sense that she would be fake, because if she was, why would Dustin go through the trouble of trying to show her to his friends? So they should just believe him. Alright, so moving on to the teenage characters, or slightly older than teenage-ish. Steve. So Steve is now out of high school, is into the real world, and he has a job at Scoops Ahoy, which is an ice cream place in the new mall. And he is desperately trying to get a girlfriend after having broken up with Nancy in season 2. And he doesn't have any plans for college. His grades apparently weren't too good in high school, so he doesn't really know where he's going in life, and that's something that I can relate to quite a bit. Also kind of with the desperately trying to get a girlfriend type thing, although maybe not as desperately. And I think with Steve's friendship with Dustin, he sort of like doesn't want to grow up yet. Like he's not quite ready because he's realizing the real world is a lot different than high school, and he's used to how he was in high school, being the cool, popular, sort of jock type of guy. So he's having some issues adjusting to the real world. And he's kind of stupid in a few ways. But I mean, overall, I think Steve is really likable. Like in season 1, he wasn't for most of it. He was kind of the douchebag guy. But then in season 2, and even at the end of season 1 he became quite likable. And now he still is. And I really like his relationship with Dustin. He's sort of like Dustin's cool older brother. And Steve works with a girl named Robin at Scoops Ahoy. She was one of the nerds, or like band geeks, I think. Was she in band? I think she mentioned something about that at some point. In high school, she was more of a nerd and someone who Steve would never hang out with. And she sort of makes fun of Steve for trying to get girls, which I thought was quite funny. I like that a lot.
You know that means you suck.
Yep, I can read too.
Since when?
And she has really great, like, playful, fake mean chemistry with Steve. She really likes to make fun of him because he is really stupid, but she also cares for him quite a bit too. They're actually turning into good friends, even though I don't think Steve realizes it because he's pretty dumb. And yeah, she's a new character. Alright, Jonathan. So Jonathan has finally found a place of self-acceptance, I think, in sort of being an outcast. And that's both with his romantic relationship with Nancy, and he now has a job working for a newspaper as a photographer, which puts his skills to use. This is a big sticker, so I should be careful. Hey, that didn't go so badly. There we go, see, it says Stranger Danger. Alright, so I guess this is a stand and little display sign. You can put characters on here. The bike doesn't really... Oh, the bike can fit on there. Okay, that's actually pretty awesome. But a wedge is being driven between him and Nancy because there's a new story that Nancy is pursuing, although her bosses don't want her to, and Jonathan wants to keep his job, both for money reasons and because, you know, it's putting his skills to use, as I said. But Nancy, segue into her character. Nancy is facing discrimination in the workplace, and her bosses don't respect her whatsoever, so they don't want her to go after this story, even though she's working for a newspaper and she wants to be a reporter, but they pretty much only use her for like getting them coffee and food and stuff.
Careful there, Nancy Drew. Careful.
So Nancy has to work way harder at her job than Jonathan does at his, and she really starts to get fed up with the assholes who are their bosses. I specifically hate and am very annoyed by the Nancy Drew guy. He's just irritating like every second that he's on screen, and he's meant to be. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But yeah, she's struggling to show that she is a valid journalist, and also the story that she is going after, like, yes, it's interesting, but it's also not very believable. And I think her being a journalist just makes absolute sense, because in the first season she's trying to figure out what's going on with the Demogorgon and what happened to Barb, and then trying to catch the monster and whatnot. And then in the second season, she ends up working with Jonathan and with Murray to expose Hawkins' lab and get some justice for Barb. And she does not care about losing her job, but Jonathan does, which is, where their relationship drama and troubles come from. Alright, let's talk about Joyce Byers. So something that I've always loved about Joyce is she's just the ultimate defensive mother type. She's always going to be there for her kids. And she's having some trouble moving on from everything that's happened in Hawkins. Her boyfriend Bob was killed very brutally in front of her, and of course all the shit that happened with Will. So she's planning on moving out of Hawkins and moving to Maine, which is, one of the farthest places in the US that she could move to, I guess. Also, one more reason to move out of Hawkins is the shop that she works at isn't doing very well, or actually she might manage the shop, I don't know. But it's not doing very well because of the mall taking over a lot of the business in their town. And Hopper, here we go, Hopper, he wants to start a romantic relationship with Joyce. Because honestly, they would really work well together. They're both the protective mother and father figures in the show. And let's be honest, everyone in the audience wants them to get together. But she doesn't really want to date Hopper. It becomes obvious that she does have feelings for him, but she's still trying to get over Bob and his death and stuff, and if she's gonna move out of Hawkins, it's not really what she's looking for right now. And these magnets are falling off of her fridge, these goddamn magnets. And that's really bugging her, because she's kind of crazy. But really, I think she's just paranoid about more supernatural shit happening, because, it has happened in the past there, and it has endangered her children. Alright, let's talk about Hopper. So, unlike Joyce, Hopper feels like he wants to settle down in Hawkins. Because when the show started, he wasn't really at home in Hawkins exactly. He was just a washed up asshole police chief, but he found a family. Or, something to care about and to motivate him and to push him forward. He's adopted Elle as his daughter, and he worked with Joyce to find Will, and he's so involved in keeping Hawkins safe and dealing with the crazy upside down supernatural shenanigans that go on. And I think that's really great conflict between him and Joyce, is how he sees Hawkins as a place that he wants to stay in and build a family in, and Joyce just wants to get the hell out of there. So yeah, Mike and Elle are dating. He doesn't like not having control over what's going on and, what she's allowed to do in terms of dating, and, he wants her to keep the door at least 3 inches open and all that. But the kids are just kind of doing their own thing and blowing him off, and he's getting more and more pissed about it. I also think that there might be a little bit of jealousy there with him wanting to date Joyce, but her standing him up, and yet Mike and 11 are dating and getting along fine. These children can do it. Why aren't things going right for me, And he really doesn't understand teenagers and parenting them. If you think about it, he lost Sarah when she was pretty young, and then he adopted Elle when she was a little bit older than Sarah. So he's never had a teenager before. And well, okay, she's not quite a teenager, I guess. Wait, maybe she is. I don't know. He goes to Joyce for advice on what to do.
A heart-to-heart? What is that?
You sit them down and you talk to them like you're their friend.
And yeah, it's quite humorous how much he just doesn't get kids or how to talk to them about emotional things. By the way, right now I'm building Hopper's police truck or whatever. That's how much I have so far. So Joyce ends up giving him all this really great advice on how to talk to them about their relationship, and he's going to do it, but he completely just throws it out of the window and handles it his own way, which ruins everything. He just, he sort of threatens Mike and gets him to not want to hang out with Elle anymore. And he doesn't try to appeal to their emotions at all. Which, of course, in the end you find out he was going to try to do that, but he decided against it. Alright, and then we have one more sort of major character, which is Billy. And throughout most of the season, Billy is used as a villain character. He doesn't have too much going on himself as a character, and that is because he gets possessed by the Mind Flayer, which I think is a really interesting sort of twist that I would not have expected before I watched this season. And I think it works really great because Billy is such a tortured soul on his own, like already, you know, without the supernatural possession and torturing and messed up stuff that happens. So it just sort of amplifies that in his character, and you really feel for him a lot more than you ever have before. And Billy ends up getting possessed, I guess sort of as a result of karma in a way, because he's trying to seduce Mrs. Wheeler, aka Mike and Nancy's mother. At the end of season 2, they had a sort of, you know, silly scene where Mike's mom has a crush on him.
I didn't realize Nancy had a sister. What's so funny?
I'm Nancy's mother.
No.
Yes.
Mrs. Wheeler.
And then they really play that up, and it's comedic, but also really weird and uncomfortable.
I could teach you if you like.
Oh.
I know all the styles. Freestyle, butterfly, breaststroke.
And Billy, he's such an interesting character because he's so messed up in the head, and it's all because of, you know, like how his father has treated him and messed up things that happened with his family, which we'll get into a little bit more later on in the review. By the way, I'm very glad that Mrs. Wheeler did not actually go on the date with Billy, and I just put that on the wrong way. Okay, so Billy is a good segue into talking about some of the mystery and horror aspects of the show. So I really like the first scene of the show because it says it takes place in June 1984, which is before season 2, so at first when I saw it, I'm like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. That these people are trying to reopen the gate in Hawkins before season 2 ended, so before it was even closed. But it's actually a big bamboozle because eventually the characters talk and you realize that they are Russian and that they aren't even in Hawkins, and then they say like, this better be ready in 1 year, or, you know, whatever. So that leads to the Russians infiltrating Hawkins. And the reasoning behind it is not entirely clear to me yet, and I'll talk about this more towards the end of the review. But it seems that the reason they went to Hawkins to open the gate to the Upside Down is because the gate there was still healing, as Alexei says later. Although there very well may be other intentions there. So the Russians are a human threat, and when they do open the gate under the Starcourt Mall, it awakens the part of the Mind Flayer that was left in our dimension. And things go off from there. We have possessed rats, possessed people, both of which end up exploding or melting to morph into a body for the Mind Flayer. And all of the supernatural, like, monster type of shit in this season, it's like they upped it a notch. Like, it's very creepy and scary. And this season is also, I think, much more violent and gory than the previous seasons. Here's a montage of some of the violence and gore. But yeah, with the Russians, something that I forgot to mention that I didn't mention is it's cool because in the previous 2 seasons, they mentioned, oh, the Russians, you know, because they're in the middle of the Cold War, so they're worried about the Russians doing things or finding out about the Upside Down. And you never think it'll actually be a serious threat. Like, you think it's just people being paranoid, but now it actually is, which I think is pretty cool. And yeah, we have possessed people killing their own family members, seemingly, even though they don't kill them. We have them kidnapping people, eating chemicals, which was kind of weird and never fully explained, but I guess it doesn't really need to be. I guess consuming the chemicals somehow makes their bodies ready to morph into the Mind Flayer body or something. And many of the characters who become possessed were already creepy characters to start with. Obviously Billy and the bosses at the newspaper, especially Nancy Drew guy. So I really like what they did there. I thought that was insanely creepy how when the people are possessed, they sort of retain an aspect or a portion of themselves still. So yeah, lots of scary shit in this season. I feel like we get obviously closer than we've ever been to actually understanding what's going on with the supernatural stuff, but at the same time we still don't by the end of it, which is good. I think part of the mystery and creepiness needs to come with not knowing what the hell it even actually is. But, you know, we know that the Mind Flayer is specifically going after 11, and then he wants to end everything, like end all life or something. We don't really know why, and maybe we don't need to know why. Maybe it's creepier if we just don't know why. But yeah, I really like where they took all of the supernatural stuff. Okay, now before I talk about the rest of the season, I'm just going to talk about some general things that are in Season 3. Such as the soundtrack. I love the original score for this show, and it's still really great. Also, not just the score, but the 80s songs and 70s songs and whatnot that they put into the show. They are edited in really fun ways, and also it just puts you in that time period to hear the music.
Hey, lord ass! No running on my watch!
Now, although this season is in many ways a lot scarier than the previous two seasons, it's also way, way funnier than the previous two.
I gotta warn you again, and you're banned for life. You wanna be banned for life, lord ass? Didn't think so.
There's some really great comedy throughout the whole thing. It's like constantly throwing jokes at you that are, most of them, pretty laugh-worthy.
Oh, no! Nancy! Sorry.
The darkroom gag I really liked. Jonathan is trying to process his photos in the darkroom. Nancy keeps on opening it without thinking. They do that multiple times, and I think it just got funnier each time that they did it.
Just speak louder.
I intercepted a secret Russian communication.
Jeez, shh. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought you said.
Pretty much anything with Dustin is pretty hilarious. Later on in the season, Hopper is just a massive dick, and it's played for laughs. I really like when he steals the dude's car and he's trying to make Alexi out to be some criminal, I think he said like child murderer.
That man in there, I know he doesn't look it, but he is one of the most dangerous men in the world.
And he just looks like the most harmless person in the world. It's great. The CGI is way better than in Season 1, and a little bit better than in Season 2. Season 1 CGI was pretty bad because the show didn't have much of a budget, but then they made that, it got really popular, so Season 2 and 3 got bigger budgets. And yeah, I'm glad the CGI looks much better than it used to in this season, because there's a lot of goopy monster stuff that would have looked really awful if it wasn't better. Okay, that's where I'm going to end it for now.